Hey guys, welcome back. Behavior strategies for class. If you are ready to turn your student behavior challenges into classroom success stories by helping teachers respond to challenging behavior with calm clarity and confidence so that every student can thrive, you are in the right place. Today we're going to talk about first week behavior mistakes that most teachers don't realize they're making. And I want to help you be prepared as possible to help your students thrive. Welcome to Behavior Strategies for Class, the show where your student behavior challenges become your classroom success stories. I'm Diane Bachman, a trauma-informed educator, a certified trauma-informed coach with over 15 years of experience working in special education. And I help teachers respond to behavior with calm, clarity, and confidence while building real connection. Each week, we're going to break down those tough moments with practical trauma-informed strategies you can use right away. You'll hear stories that remind you you're not alone. And if you're ready for a calmer classroom, stronger relationships, and behavior support that actually works, you're in the right place. Let's get started. As always, before we get started, please hit that subscribe button, share this podcast, this episode with other educators that you know so we can continue to grow. And if you have not yet left a review, I would love to hear from you. How are these strategies working? How are these episodes impacting you so that you can help your students thrive and push through those challenging behaviors? I would love to hear from you. So, the main reason for behavior mistakes is sometimes we're just rushing into school, right? We're in school mode. We got to get everything set and ready, but we forget sometimes to build those systems, routines, clarity that actually will help prevent behavior issues in the long run. So these mistakes, we're going to go over 9 mistakes, show up again by week 7, and teachers, you start feeling that ripple effect. So this episode is going to help you avoid that classic back to school pitfalls and build a calm, predictable classroom from day one. So the first mistake that sometimes teachers don't realize they're making is by skipping or rushing through those routines, assuming that your students will figure it out. Right? Most of your kids, they know they're in school. They know there's a routine. They know stuff has to be put away, work needs to be turned in, stuff, their backpacks, jackets, all those things need to happen. There's a transition between academics, what you're learning at that time. They'll figure it out when it needs to happen. First mistake. Number 2, first week behavior mistake that teachers don't realize they're making is diving straight into academics. So skipping that community building and relationship building, these make behavior management harder all year. Because you're just boom, guys, this is what we're learning this first semester. This is what we're going to go over, this, and this. And I get it. I hope you're excited about the new curriculum, the new year, and you're ready to teach, and there's so many cool things. But if you forget to start building community and relationships, they're going to have a hard time really connecting with you and honestly listening to you. And I know that's hard to say because we want, obviously, all of your students to be listening to you. But just taking time just to get to know your students is super valuable, super important, and will definitely pay off in the long run. So, third mistake that teachers don't realize they're making in the first week of school is overloading students with info. Right? You have jam-packed first day, it feels overwhelming, and students really are already anxious. And now, you again have all these things you need to share, all these things they need to know about, but it's like overload, right? Their brains are like swelling up. They don't know what to do with all this information. So, little by little, instead of a super overload for your students. So, number 4 mistake teachers don't realize they're making the first week of school is being inconsistent with boundaries. Students are going to test limits, exactly, and they could learn that expectations are negotiable. And unfortunately, I've seen more than one teacher really struggle with this. Like, she would start off strong and set those expectations, and then before you know it, she's kind of, not really being consistent and following through on what those expectations are. So it really becomes a free-for-all. And I know that's not new for a lot of you. You've seen it. Maybe you kind of struggle with that in your classroom, but don't be inconsistent with boundaries and expectations in your classroom. So the 5th mistake is assuming that students have the skills that they should, right? You presume they remember last year's routines, their academic and social skills, like they should know. I definitely find in working with kids over the last almost 2 decades is that some students really are not taught social skills or even academic skills, like what's expected. It's kind of shocking. So sometimes we just have to take a minute and say, well, did you learn this before? Has anyone taught you this? So don't assume students have the skill that they really should have, but technically, maybe nobody has taught them that. So 6th mistake is neglecting that relationship building. So I talked a little bit about that in mistake number 2, but this is a little more detailed, like all the little things that you guys do build relationship, right? It doesn't mean, again, that you have to sit down for half an hour, with each and every one of your students and find out their whole entire life. And now you are, BFFs, or you feel connected and everything's great. We all know that is not a realistic expectation. And, that's not what you're there for. So building connection is truly in the everyday little ways that you interact with your students. So that's greeting your students in the morning, calling them by name, helping them, showing interest in their lives. Again, that's where I said, you get to know your students. I've seen teachers do this in a lot of different ways, either giving like a little worksheet and having them fill out like their favorite things, or doing like a community circle, morning meeting, just kind of taking turns sharing a little bit about themselves, and then you as the teacher being able to share and giving little tidbits about yourself. And then they start to relate to you and know, okay, you really are human and you have likes and dislikes and all those fun things. So, super important not to neglect relationship building. So, number 7, 7th mistake is trying to do everything alone. And this really is for any new teachers out there, right? You want to make sure everybody sees like you got it together, you have it handled, no worries. I got it all under control. But it's super important you guys all have teams. As far as I know, every school I've been into, you have a grade level team. And just being able to connect and just say, hey, I'm going to try this year. What do you think about this? Or what worked for you last year, or any of the years, working with students. It is so true. Community builds strength and confidence together. And so being able to not to do everything alone, because that increases stress and decreases consistency, because now you're getting to burnout. Now you're exhausted. And we don't want that like in the first month of school, right? We got to keep this energy up, ready to go, helping these kids learn and get the skills that they need to thrive and survive, right? So the 8th mistake is being too rigid. Now, this may seem counterintuitive to some of the other things I'm saying, like those expectations, keeping them clear and consistent. But we also need to know, like, when you rush transition, you miss cues, some behaviors may flare up during this time. So knowing that some students may need different things to help them transition in between subjects, in between classrooms, in between lunchtime and recess, all those things, finding that out, that you can be flexible, but still hold the expectation, but it might look a little different for some of your students. Right? Like, so for example, you're transitioning from your classroom to specials. We have specials, which is like PE, art. Can't even think of the other ones at this moment. Anyways, classrooms transition to a different classroom for that art class. STEAM, that's another one. And maybe you have some students, they need to hold something to transition. And so you give a student a fidget. And then other students are like, hey, wait a minute. Like, I thought we're supposed to be walking quietly, hands to ourselves, whatever it is. Right? You're always going to have somebody who's going to be like, hey, that's not fair. Well, everybody has different needs. And so if you're able to help a student transition using a fidget and decreasing any disruptive or explosive behavior, then that's what you need to do. So that's being not too rigid, but still holding the expectation of walking in the hallway. I hope that was clear. And then 9th mistake is misinterpreting those quiet, hesitant students, assuming their disengagement is defiance. Now, I was definitely a little more quiet in school. I know, kind of crazy, right? To think that, but I was some of the time. As far as I know, I don't know that any teacher interpreted that I was being defiant, but I was definitely not the first person to raise my hand. I would kind of be hiding behind the person in front of me so that I didn't get called on. But that didn't mean that I didn't want to be there. I just didn't want to be the center of attention in class. I didn't want to go up to the board and like answer a question or, stand up and speak in front of class. Now, though, it's great to see, this is just a little side note, sorry, but I'm going to take you on this little trail anyway. Like, it's great to see even kindergartners getting up and sharing and talking in front of class, in front of their classmates, because it takes away that nervousness, that anxiety once they hit like 5th, 6th grade, and then the middle school, high school, right? And going on to college. All that to say thank you, teachers who are getting your students up and talking in front of a classroom, like early age. So this is definitely a short and sweet episode, but I just want to go over again some of the first week behavior mistakes that teachers that you don't realize that you may be making, or you made in the past, and now you know the mistakes, and now you're not going to do them again, right? So number 1 is skipping or rushing through routines, assuming they'll figure it out. Mistake number 2, diving straight into academics, skipping that community building and relationship building. Mistake number 3, overloading students with info, right? They're already stressed out and anxious. Number 4 mistake, being inconsistent with boundaries. Because students, we know, will test those limits. You don't want them to learn that expectations are negotiable. 5th mistake is assuming students have the skills that they should, that they'll remember from last year, or that they already have those social skills. Don't assume. 6th mistake is neglecting relationship building. Neglecting to get to know them. Taking time to say, hey, great to see you. 7th mistake is trying to do everything alone, which increases stress and decreases consistency. 8th mistake is being too rigid, rushing through transitions, missing those cues, and having that behavior flare up. 9th mistake is misinterpreting those quiet, hesitant students, that their disengagement equals defiance. So which mistake have you struggled with before? Do you see yourself in any of these mistakes? I definitely do in like rushing through transitions sometimes. Like trying to get that student back to class, like, okay, your break's over, let's go, we gotta go, and rushing through and maybe not really processing with that student a little bit longer, talking with them a little bit more, and then they're back to their general ed class, and the next thing you know, they're calling us back again and saying, hey, we need more support for this student, because I didn't take the time to really see, what's going on, or if they're really ready to go back to class. We're just on to like the next student, or, I had something else I had to get done. I don't really remember at this moment what it was, but that is definitely one mistake that I have done in the past. So think about these mistakes, and hopefully you will not be doing those this year, because now you're a little more self-aware. But I would love to hear, which ones have you struggled with? And which ones are you going to work on this year? All right, guys, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate all your support, and we got this. You're going to do amazing this year. Your students are going to be so happy to be in your classroom this year. I can't wait to see what this year has in store for us. All right, I will see you next week. I almost forgot to share the 3 most impactful mistakes. According to research from Moreland University and masterteacher.com, number 1 is not teaching routines explicitly. Number 2, not building relationships before academics. And number 3, not being consistent with boundaries. This research states that these 3 mistakes will drive 80% of your first month behavior challenges. Let that sink in. All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for listening. I truly appreciate your support. And if I have encouraged you, motivated you to continue to learn, to support your students, even better, to help them strive in your classroom, please leave a review, hit that subscribe button so that others can see they can learn and grow here as well. Thank you.